Welcome to this machine tool video, Doosan machine setup and operation. The Doosan CNC turning center machine is used to face, turn, bore, groove, thread, and drill parts. It's capable of holding close tolerances and typically works with round parts. After watching this video, you will be able to power up and shut down the machine and use the control buttons to manually operate the Doosan CNC turning center machine. To power up the Doosan turning center, find the main power switch on the back of the machine and turn it to the on position. Also, turn on the air supply to the machine. Now the control can be powered up. Press the power on button on the control and remember that the control takes a few minutes to start. Once the control is on, a startup screen will be displayed. The Doosan turning center control is equipped with a touchscreen. Using your finger, select the NC operation button on the screen. A position screen should now be displayed on the screen. This is the FANUC IHMI side of the control. We want to be using the classic FANUC side of the control. To enter the classic FANUC side of the control, press the S2 button on the control. The position screen that is displaying now should look different than the previous position screen that was being displayed. Now the hydraulics of the machine need to be started. To do this, release the emergency stop by rotating it in a clockwise direction and then press the hydraulic on button. The next step is to home or reference all the axes. This must be done with every startup. Press the reference button on the control. The light above the button will indicate that the machine is in reference mode. To reference the x-axis, press the X plus button on the control. When the x-axis is referenced, the reference return indicator light for x will turn green. Reference the z-axis by pressing the Z plus button on the control. The reference return indicator light for z will turn green when the z-axis is referenced. The last axis to reference is the B-axis, or the tailstock. The reference return indicator light for B will turn green when the tailstock is referenced. To move the axes using the pulse handle or hand wheel, select the desired axis by pressing the X hand wheel or Z hand wheel button. When selected, the light above the button will indicate that it has been selected. The next step is to select the increment at which the operator would like to move the axis using the pulse handle. The Doosan has three selections. X100, for every increment on the pulse handle, the machine will move 10 thousandths. X10, for every increment on the pulse handle, the machine will move 1 thousandth. X1, for every increment on the pulse handle, the machine will move 1/10 of a thousandth. The light above each button will indicate which increment is selected. The machine will move with the pulse handle whenever the door is open or closed. When moving the Z-axis, using the pulse handle, turning the handle counterclockwise will move the axis in the negative direction or toward the chuck. Turning the handle clockwise will move the axis in the positive direction or away from the chuck. When moving the X-axis, using the pulse handle, turning the handle counterclockwise will turn the axis in the negative direction or towards the chuck. Turning the handle clockwise will move the axis in the positive direction or away from the chuck. The jog mode allows the operator to move the axes at a selected feed rate. To enter the jog mode, press the jog button on the control. The light above the button will indicate that the machine is in jog mode. To move the axes in jog mode, use the axis buttons on the control. Follow the labels on each of the axis buttons to know which axis and direction each button controls. The feed rate will be selected by using the feed rate override dial on the control. Turning the dial counterclockwise will decrease the feed rate, and turning it clockwise will increase the feed rate. The feed rate will be displayed on the screen while the axis is moving. Also, the feed rate can be adjusted, increased or decreased, while the axis is moving. The feed rate on the screen is displayed in inches per minute. Just like the pulse handle, the axes will move with the door open or closed. Also, while in jog mode, the axes can be moved at a rapid rate. To do this, first select the desired rapid rate by using the rapid override buttons. F0 is the slowest rapid, F25 is 25% of full rapid, and F100 is 100% rapid. A light above the rapid override button will indicate which rapid override is selected. To rapid the axes, use the axis button on the control. Press and hold the button for the desired axis and direction. Then, press the yellow rapid button in the center. The axes will rapid with the door open, but it will only rapid at the F0 rate. To use the F25 or F100 rates, the door must be shut. Note, be very careful with the rapids to not crash the machine. The Doosan turning center is equipped with a hydraulic chuck to use on the OD, outside diameter, or ID, inside diameter, of a part. First, you'll need to select the OD or ID chuck by using the chuck mode key on the control. Turning the key to the left will select OD chucking, and turning the key to the right will select ID chucking. For this video, OD chucking will be demonstrated. To operate the chuck, the foot pedal will be used. To use the foot pedal, insert your foot into the yellow housing. Make sure that it is fully inserted so that the safety switch is activated. If the safety switch is not activated, the operator will not be allowed to press the pedal. Press down on the pedal to clamp the chuck. The jaws will close. When the chuck is clamped, the machine will beep. To unclamp the chuck, simply press on the pedal again and the jaws will open. Being that the chuck is a hydraulic chuck, the operator has the ability to change the chucking pressure. On the left side of the front of the machine are two gauges. The top gauge is the chuck pressure, and the bottom gauge is the tailstock pressure. To rotate or index the turret to the desired tool, return the X and Z axis to their reference position. Close the door. Located above the chuck mode key are the buttons that are used to index the turret. The display will show the number of the tool that is currently active. The plus and minus buttons are used to select which tool to index the turret to. By pressing the minus button, the number will go down, and pressing the plus button, the number will go up. Note, when either of these buttons are pressed, the number will flash in the display between 0 and the number of the tool that the turret is going to index to. To demonstrate, if the desired tool is tool 1, press the minus button until the O1 is flashing in the display. To index the turret to that tool, press the turret index button on the control. The turret can be indexed in the following modes: reference, jog, or pulse handle. Note, the turret will index even if the axes are not in the reference position. This can be dangerous, and the axes should always be in the reference position before indexing. The MDI mode is used to enter short lines of code into the control, like spindle speed and spindle on. To enter the MDI mode, press the MDI button on the control. When in MDI mode, the light above the button will illuminate. The first step in entering code in the MDI mode is to be in the correct screen. On the control, press the prog button. The screen will now have an area where the program will be displayed. On the Doosan, to set the RPM and initially turn the spindle on, the MDI mode must be used. For this example, the RPM will be set to 1000 and the spindle will be turned on. Using the keyboard, type S1000 for 1000 RPM and then M3 for turning the spindle on. The Doosan also requires an end of block symbol at the end of every line of code. The semicolon represents end of block. Press the EOB button on the keyboard to get the end of block symbol. While typing code, it is being shown in the white bar located in the lower right of the screen. If the operator needs to delete a character, use the cancel button on the keyboard. Now that the line of code is complete, it needs to be inserted into the program. To do this, press the input button on the keyboard. The screen should now have the line of code in the program window. To execute the line of code, press the green Cycle Start button in the lower left of the control. Once the Cycle Start button is pressed, the machine will start the spindle. To stop the spindle using MDI, type M5 and then press the End of Block button. Insert this into the program by pressing the Input button on the keyboard. Now, press the Cycle Start button on the control and the spindle will stop. Once the spindle has been turned on and off at a desired RPM in the MDI mode, the spindle can be turned on and off in the jog mode or the pulse handle mode. To do this, enter either the jog or pulse handle mode. To start the spindle, press the green Start button on the control. To stop the spindle, use the red Stop button on the control. While the spindle is on, the spindle override dial can be used to speed up or down the spindle. Turning the dial counterclockwise will decrease the RPM, and turning it clockwise will increase the RPM. When the dial is at 100%, a green indication light will turn on. To shut down the machine, ensure that the axes are in the reference position and the door is open. Press the emergency stop. Now the control needs to be shut off by pressing the off button in the upper right of the control. Once the screen is black, the main power can be turned off on the back of the machine, and the air supply can be turned off. We reviewed how to power up and shut down the Doosan CNC turning center machine and operate it using the control buttons. This concludes this machine tool video, Doosan machine setup and operation.